We have with us Dr. Diane Carrasco-Jaquez.
Yay, yes.
I got it right. All right. Dr. Carrasco-Jaquez has been working in higher education for 20 years in a range of capacities, including her current role as Senior Dean over the School of STEM, Dean of Career, Technical, and Workforce Education, and Dean of Teaching and Learning at Odessa College in Texas. Through her leadership, she has helped Odessa become a state and nationally recognized community college, receiving awards of excellence from the Aspen Institute, Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and Achieving the Dream. Dr. Carrasco-Jaquez holds a doctorate in higher education administration and a Master of Science in Computer Information Systems, both from the University of Phoenix, and a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from the University of Texas, Permian Basin. Her goal is to impact lives in the community by serving as a transformative leader in higher education. Please help me welcome Dr. Diane Carrasco-Jaquez.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here today. I know what that feels like, and I certainly appreciate you. My name is Diane, and I'm here to talk to you today about enhancing that holistic approach to student success that you all do so well here at St. Petersburg College. And so we'll start by just looking at some national statistics. As you can see, over half of students are worried about going to college because they're afraid they might not be able to pay their debt once they go into college, because that's the first thing people think. Mm-hmm. And over half of them say, well, you know what, if I'm working right now, I'm going to have to use this money to pay for college. So guess what happens if they lose their job? They may stop out because now they can't pay. But notice 72% say that they would actually take advantage of financial aid support at their college. But if you think about our students, that doesn't always happen. I think people make a lot of assumptions about, well, I don't qualify, or I'm not smart enough, or whatever people think about scholarships or financial aid. And so these are interesting statistics, things to keep in mind as we think about how we help students get through their educational journey. So let's look at that journey then, keeping the financial burdens and the other things in mind. This is what it looks like. We have a potential student who eventually we would like to see complete successfully. It's a straight line, point A to point B. Now, we've created some entry points for students. I know that you all do that here. You connect them with information. You all have dual credit programs, dual enrollment. You have financial aid workshops to get them in the door so that they can get financial aid. You help them progress through a guided pathway initiative, and then eventually they complete, and either they transfer or engage with an employer and get into the workforce. So we have all of these things in place. The reality is that each one of these entry points has lots of different steps. And so what looks like a straight line eventually really becomes quite complex. And these aren't extra things that are in here. These are real things that students go through. And they're processes that we have in place as higher education leaders. They're necessary, but they are a lot of different steps. And so it does behoove us to make sure that we help our students every step of the way. And so what can that look like? Well, at St. Petersburg College, you all already have a lot of great things going on right now. I was quite impressed looking at the website and looking at the different things that you do to purposefully and intentionally help students be successful. What I think is that all of these things work together to help students be successful. I think that they could be enhanced just a little. Each area be enhanced and collaborate together to improve what you've already got going. And so here's the vision: to really improve student success by 3 different areas. That student wraparound support, Some innovative instructional approaches, very important because our faculty work very closely with students. And then also really be very intentional about that engagement with employers and university partners. And again, as I mentioned, these are things that you do. There are just bits and pieces that we can look at to enhance, to improve success, retention, and then finally completion. So looking at those three areas, they happen at different places: out of the classroom, in the classroom, and after the classroom. So thinking about that again, holistic approach to helping students. So we'll start by thinking about out of the classroom. I noticed on one of the programs at St. Petersburg College, I don't remember what campus it was a business area, that somebody does offer a free, first-class free scholarship. What if we did that and removed that barrier for all students? Now, if there's any CFO people in here, they're probably having a heart attack at this time. But there are innovative and creative ways to do that through the budget process that I won't get into detail about here. But even thinking about just getting the student into the first class, if they have an awesome student experience the way that you all have planned and what we can do to enhance, then your return on investment is that they're going to keep coming back. And by then we'll be paying tuition and getting involved in part of the college. Another thing is, if I have faculty or people who've been faculty, what's the thing that number one thing people don't come with the first day of class? They don't have a book because it's $300 or $400 sometimes. So having students ready that first day of class through the Open Educational Resources Initiative is something that can really be a game changer. $1,300 is the average cost that students pay for their books every semester. Or every year, actually. 50% of the students say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. This is killing me. I can't afford this. I can barely afford the tuition. And then if you're doing an 8-week class, they don't get the book, and it's second week, and they still don't have a book. They're waiting to get the book. They've already set themselves up for failure. And so this is one of those initiatives that, even though it does take a lot to make it happen, and I'll mention it a little bit more in the instructional area, it's certainly worth it to provide that wraparound support, again, removing barriers for students. Now, a lot of students will start and they do great, and then something happens. Something happens at work. Something happens with their electricity bill, their car breaks, they have to get it fixed, whatever it might be, and there you go with the finances again. They're struggling. So maybe they're halfway through, but they've got to stop out because they can't afford the tuition anymore. What if we had an academic progress scholarship which really turns out to be some sort of percentage discount off of their tuition after they reach a certain point? It works wonders because if you've got 30 hours banked and you're halfway there, or maybe you have 45 hours and you stopped out, we can get maybe a group of people to call students who stopped out and say, hey, how would you like a 10% discount just to get you to come back and finish the last 15 hours or the last 20 hours, whatever it might be. Something to keep the students motivated to complete their degree. Okay, so I've talked about out of the classroom. Once we actually get them in the classroom, what can we do to help keep moving them forward? Well, I'm going to reemphasize things that you've got available. I know there are different learning options, such as the prior learning assessment that you have available. I know you have the experiential learning. I know those are all things part of SPC. There's an orientation class that students take, and there are skills that they learn in that orientation class to help them be successful. There's something we can do there. And then you have different on-ramps for students, which is awesome. I thought it was wonderful when I saw that there was Monday through Sunday classes. I thought we were doing good where I am, but you guys are way above us. So It's awesome. Lots of different flexibility for students. How can we enhance each area to, again, help them complete and retain students and then complete? Well, we'll start by looking at the learning options. When I was doing my research, I couldn't find a lot on the prior learning assessments. I just happened to find it, I think it was in the catalog somewhere. But if I'm a student or a prospective student and I go look at the website, what am I going to look at? I'm going to look at how much is it going to cost me and how long is it going to take me? Because I have kids, I have a job, I have things that I've got to get moving. So if, when I go on the website, if I can see that, hey, I've been working in the field for 10 years and somehow I can get past, a certain class through some assessments that I take, wow, that's going to save me time and money. That's going to be lucrative to me. Especially competency-based education. So I'm sorry, before I move on to that, doing the intentional marketing of that piece could just do wonders, I believe, for the school. So just being very intentional about putting it out there in students' faces. Competency-based education is something that I currently am not offering at my school, but we're working on it, and I'm very excited to get working on it because what that does is, let's just say somebody does do the prior learning assessment and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't do as well as I thought I would, or maybe I don't have enough work experience, but I know some stuff. Well, if my class is created around this competency-based education, then I can come in and go to Module 1. Hey, I know all this stuff. Let me take this pretest and show that I've mastered this information. Hey, that's awesome. I can pass this and not have to do all these extra assignments. Because think about what students do. When they get into a class and they're like, oh yeah, I already know how to do this. Oh my God, this is so boring. I know this. Okay, that's awesome. You can make 100. But students have what? Time and money. I've got to go work. I've got to take care of my kids. I don't have time to mess with this stuff that I already know how to do. But if we can set up a class that way where they can show mastery, guess what? Now they're motivated because they got some success out of it and they're ready to move on and do even better in the next module. And even if they struggle in the next module, at least they've seen some success. Okay? So really motivating students to stay and complete helps with retention. So as I mentioned before, the OER. What OER can also do is not only save students money, which is huge, it also empowers faculty. There's a lot of controversy right now, I get it, around OER. I've seen all the good comments, I've seen the bad comments, and I gotta tell you, it is something new and different, but I have seen faculty really turn around and make things very exciting in their classroom because now they have the power to determine what content's in the class, what type of resources they use to build the class. They're no longer bound to this textbook that says there are 16 chapters and I got to cover all these chapters. I got to cover all these sections. Hurry, 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 hurry. I got to finish. Okay, God, I made it through. Wait a minute, did my students learn? I don't know, but I covered all the chapters. This is something I feel like is very empowering for faculty and for students because then it becomes relevant material, using online resources that are online articles, using the databases that are available at our library. This can all really, again, make the classroom really become alive. And so, again, this points to keeping students' interest and retaining them in the class because our goal is to get them to complete. So going along with that, as faculty are building, these are part of the in the classroom and the instructional approaches. Remember I said that you all have that orientation class and students are learning skills. You've got to give them opportunity to practice those skills. And so we can do that by reinforcing those skills in different activities in the classroom. So faculty can use lots of different high engagement strategies to include writing, organization, collaboration. All of these things are going to help students be successful because a student that walks into the classroom and, a lot of people, let's just say math because people don't like it. I like math, but people don't. But once you get in there, if I had an instructor that was helping me and scaffolding me along the way, then perhaps I'm getting a little bit more motivated to want to do better because I see a success and then another success, and then eventually I'll complete. So building on those skills that they learn in orientation and really taking a step back and looking at my class as a faculty member. How many assignments am I giving? Am I creating assignments that are meaningful, or am I just doing what the book tells me to do? Am I spreading them out? Am I giving fair and balanced opportunities, low stakes and high stakes? Because testing is important. I do get it. It is important. But learning also involves failing and making mistakes. And if I don't give my students an opportunity to fail and recover, then what's going to happen? I lose interest, I'm not good enough, I'm going to drop, or I'm just going to disappear. So really taking a look at the classroom and see what I can do differently. I mentioned about your on-ramps you already have created. What I was looking at is wondering, what's the percentage of the 8 weeks versus the 16 weeks? Am I offering the same class in the 8-week and 16-week? And how is that affecting my student's pathway? If a student creates their pathway and some of the classes are 16-week, but others are 8-week, and they start going back and forth between the two, the pathway is no longer consistent. So just really stepping back and having an honest conversation about why do we have these multiple on-ramps and how can we use them to benefit our students' completion through that pathway. So this one's a tough one because, you know, there's different classes that, you know, I get it, they need to remain 16 weeks. You got clinical hours, you have things that must be done in a 16-week time period. But much of the classes really probably could be 8 weeks. So what happens once they're out of the classroom? They're in the classroom. I've got them engaged because I've changed up my classroom. I've cut back some costs for them. I still need to provide that wraparound support outside once they leave the classroom. You have tutoring and library services available. I also saw that you have this My Learning Plan tool, which is part of that guided pathways. And then you have a career and transfer area as well to help students. So once again, I'm talking about enhancing each of those areas just a little to see how it can help and improve retention and success. So we'll start with tutoring. You guys have some great people out there saying, hey, come see us, free services. We have this workshop, that workshop, come in whenever you want, make an appointment. We have all these things available for you. Come here, come here. I don't know how many students actually show up. Tutoring sometimes feels like, I gotta go to the library, and that's for those people, it's not for me. We have to really make tutoring intentional from day one. So having advisors talk to students day one that tutoring is part of the learning experience. It's part of what you do as a student. Faculty, starting day one, talking to students and saying how important it is. And we could possibly talk about having a tutoring policy per discipline. If you feel like students shouldn't make below a 70 on a test because perhaps the national exam says they're going to make 10 points lower, then maybe you should put a policy that says, if you make below this grade, you're going to have to spend some time either with me or a tutor for at least an hour before the next test. I'm just giving an example. But some sort of policy per discipline that faculty, you know, in each discipline can come together and have a discussion about what's appropriate. It's a total culture shift for students because they're not used to that. And it's a shift in general for the campus. But I think it's one that is certainly worth having a discussion about if we all know that tutoring is right for our students. Sometimes students don't always know what's best for them. And so we have to help them and show them and model that behavior. Creating intentional advising opportunities. So I love my learning plan tool because then they can log in, they can see their pathway right away. I know what class I need to take next, and then after that and after that. So I guess I, as a student, can log in, right? And I see that I have to take communication next semester, so I got to sign up for that. Okay, I still have time. Okay, I go get busy, I got kids, I have work, I have a spouse, whatever. Oh yeah, I have to register. Oh yeah, I have to register. That's usually what happens. It's human nature. But if we create intentional opportunities where perhaps advisors work with faculty to find some opportunities, whether it's during class or maybe before class, after class, you have a captive audience when they go to class. So using that time somehow to connect students with advisors. And you can send students one at a time. I mean, that's what the mobile registration is. Just checking in with them. Okay, I see that you're supposed to take this class. What class are you going to take? How have you planned to pay for that class? Oh, you don't have money to pay? Let's talk about scholarships. Here's the application for you to go ahead and start filling out online. Being very intentional about seeing them do those things before they walk away and then get busy with their lives. So that's what I mean by being intentional with these advising opportunities. And then being intentional about career conversations. I know that there are guest speakers that come and talk, employers that come and talk to students about career opportunities. I love that. What I think we could also do, in addition to having employers, maybe also have alumni come speak and talk about their experience in transitioning out. And then I love this skills day idea. So have the employers come. You can set up a room where you have the table set up. Students can display poster boards with their work. They can have a portfolio, or maybe you have them demonstrating skills that day. Have the students bring their resume, and employers can have a preliminary interview right there on the spot. And so this sort of speed dating interviewing option, it would be like a full day, like a Saturday or a Friday. And then same thing with transfer opportunities. I know that you have days where you invite universities to come speak to students. I would say set it up the same way as the skills day. Have a day where you have students come in, show their work to university faculty. Look at my portfolio of work. Look at this project that I worked on. Let me learn how to speak and learn how to, look people in the eye, engage with people so that they know that university faculty aren't scary. It's okay. You can make the transition. And faculty, university faculty on the other side can say, hey, these SPC students are awesome. I didn't realize that they did all this kinds of work in class. This is great. And then that again creates a connection between the departments, between the faculty and the students. So really being intentional. So these are the three areas, as I've talked about, that outside wraparound support, whether it be breaking down financial barriers or talking to students about tutoring and so forth, changing up what's going on in the classroom to make things high engagement, scaffolding, and helping students build those skills to be successful. If a student can be successful once or twice, that's enough motivation for them to continue going and stay in the class. And then lastly, as they engage with employers or alumni or university faculty, just seeing someone who used to be an SPC student out in the workforce or seeing them at a university, the student can say, look, that could be me. This person made it, so I can do it. So these three areas I feel like are really just enhancing what you're already doing, but just in different ways. So again, thank you for spending time with me. I will now open it up for questions.
Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Carrasco-Jaquez. I wanted to talk to you about competency-based education. In a school like St. Petersburg College, where do you see the inclusion of courses and areas from gen ed classes through baccalaureate level classes? And also, can you speak to some data about outcomes for success rates with competency-based education?
That's a good question. I personally do not have experience with any as far as data as to what, I mean, right now we're in the infancy stages of doing that on my campus. But we are exploring that option right now in the CTE areas. Some of our general education faculty are coming and having conversations with our CTE faculty to see how they might be able to do something like that. I will say that in our developmental math area, we do already offer something similar to competency-based education. We just don't call it. It's called our Math Studio, and it is a modular designed course. And so you do step in and do a pretest, and based on what you do on that pretest, it designs your pretty much your work for the next, let's say week or few weeks. And then you take a post-test to see if I've mastered at a certain level, and I can't leave that until I move on. The success has been really great in that area. We've had at least, I want to say 65, maybe even 70%. It's a low 70% of our students who enter that class that complete it and move on. Either they're now college ready and they're done, or they can move on to a college level math class. I think it's open to any subject. I think it would be important in the general education area to make sure that your student learning outcomes, any class is being met, but also aligned with perhaps whatever university partners where your students transfer.
Hey, thank you for your presentation. I had a question about OER in terms of roughly what percentage of the courses currently use OER, and what have been the concerns that have been shared with you as relates to the reluctance to shift more significantly in that direction, and how have you starting to address that?
Right now, at my campus, you can get an entire general studies degree in a general studies degree, a sociology degree, a psychology degree, without purchasing a textbook. You pay a $25 fee for the OER because there's a fee that we had to pass to add to each class to sustain the initiative, because we were part of the Achieving the Dream grant when we started it. So that's a huge percentage of classes. If you think about it, the general education classes, it's the biggest chunk of classes. We have some CTE classes that have gone OER. It's been a little bit more difficult to try to do that in nursing and allied health, because we have things in place like ATI, and that's just something that, we can't do that OER. That prepares students for the NCLEX exam. The concerns that have come forward are things like, well, I don't know if there's going to be enough content. I've been with my publisher for 15 years. I know what books they have. These books are done by professionals, and it's a company. Well, the books are written by faculty, and then they're reviewed by faculty. The content in OER is written by faculty, and it's reviewed by faculty and reviewed by, depending on what platform you use, the content experts in those organizations. So I get it. There's some hesitancy because it makes people uncomfortable to switch to something so different. But I think that when people come together in a discipline, or even just one subject area, one class, and have a conversation about what content is important and relevant to include in a class, then it really changes the game. It does. You're going to have that small percentage of people that just don't like it. They're just not comfortable, and you just have to work with those faculty and help them feel comfortable, help them understand that the content is relevant, the content is going to help students be successful. And bonus, they're not going to have to pay $300 for a book.
That was actually a good segue to my question. So my question was, you talked about the OER, and then you talked a little bit about how you would ask faculty to basically reassess their courses. For some folks, this would be a lot of work. And then you also mentioned the faculty mentor partnering with student affairs. So my question is, how would you engage faculty and try to motivate them to do these things with very limited resources?
Very good question. The OER piece, the reason that we asked for the $25 fee on each class that goes OER is to help sustain it, and that includes paying a stipend to faculty, whether they're going to adopt a course that's already been built by the platform. I'm just going to use Lumen Learning because that's who I've experience with. Or if they're going to adapt the course, there's a different stipend, because adapt means that you're going to go in and review and make changes as necessary. Or we've had people create something from scratch, which takes a lot of time, which is a totally different stipend as well. So there are stipends available there. Reassessing the class and looking at whether it's appropriate, the assignments, the assessment, and so forth, it does take time to do that. We don't pay a stipend, and as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I don't think that I would pay a stipend to do that, simply because if you are using the same course that you developed, 10 years ago, you shouldn't be. I hope you're not. I hope that people make changes every semester, or at least every year. I think that it would be important that people do it together as a group. And my idea of being able to do that is, what I've done is bring people together and remind them of our mission statement, remind them of our vision as an instructional division. We are here to ensure that we have access and that students are successful and that they complete. If we truly believe in that vision or that statement, then this particular initiative is what we should do and what's right for the students. It's not going to be, it doesn't make it easy, and it might make people uncomfortable, but I think that when people work together with their colleagues, then you can at least have honest conversations about, perhaps what you do in your class versus what your colleague does. And it really sort of brings people together. It becomes a fun thing. I will say at first that some people might feel like, well, I don't cover that in my class. Why are you covering that? And what's neat is that people will come together that never talk to each other about stuff like that, and it's like, whoa, why do you even cover that? That's not in the student learning outcomes of our course. Really looking at the student learning outcomes, and mind you, looking at the verbs of the student learning outcomes is eye-opening for people, because if I'm creating assessments in there that never has a student describe something or evaluate something, then I'm in trouble. I've been having them do, quizzes or whatever other things, and I never had them actually do something to evaluate and create. They're tough conversations. It's just a matter of making sure that you bring it back to the purpose behind it, which is helping students be successful.
Okay, thank you. I have a question.
Yes.
So you mentioned the balance between 16-week and 8-week course offerings. Now, you listed a few degree programs that have the OER resources. Do you have full degree programs that are entirely 8-week? In their offering nature? That's my first part. And the second part, how did you make that transition with obviously you said there were certain courses that are programs that wouldn't lend itself to that, but that loss of reflection time that the student has, the change in the pace of the course, and just some general concerns that faculty have with like an 8-week offering. How did you address that?
Very good questions. We do have entire programs that are 8 weeks. the approach that we took and that I would take anywhere is getting a committee together that's made up of faculty representatives from all the areas, student services, facilities, because it involves, of course, a lot of different people to make a shift like that happen. As far as the content, or as far as whether it's 8-week or 16-week, people need to make a case as to why it needs to be 16 weeks. So for example, you can't fit all your clinical hours in the 8-week, it's got to be 16-week. Or you have an internship course that must be 16 weeks to fit in all the work hours that have to be put in. I can't use the explanation of, well, I have way too much content to cover, I can't do this in 8 weeks. Because there are other approaches to take. There's hybrid modality, which works perfectly in the 8-week format, because if you flip your classroom, again, now we're talking about a shift for the students as well, the content that you would normally cover in the an hour and 20 minutes that you teach the class is covered in a video lecture that they must watch. They must do their guided notes, so you would create some guided notes to make sure at the end of this lecture they have got to have these certain points, or else they can't be successful when they come to class. Bring the guided notes to class, and now what we can do is homework problems, we can do real world scenarios, we can have some activities in class to apply the knowledge I just learned. In the other approach, I'm trying to cover all of this content, and then the student goes home and they have nobody there to help them to do the homework. This other approach really does put the onus on the student, I will say that. And it only takes a couple of times for the student to realize, oh my gosh, I do have to watch this lecture, I do have to do these notes, and I have to be prepared or I'm not going to be good. We've got that going on in the calculus class right now, and the students love it. I couldn't believe it. My faculty member came to me and said, yeah, they love the flipped approach. They don't want to go back to the other way. And as you know, that's a class that has a lot of content in it. It does take a lot of work up front to get that class created that way. The way that we made the switch is that we offered faculty workshops. They were required faculty workshops that we had to learn how to design a hybrid class effectively and learn how to flip the classroom. Again, if it takes a lot, there's pieces to it. And then having some teaching and learning, professional learning communities is what we called them, where people came together and literally had conversations about teaching and learning only. It's not a department meeting. It is really just a focus of how can I make my class better? What can I do differently? So if you did want to make the case, and there were some classes that didn't go 8 weeks right away. There were some science classes that didn't because the faculty that were in that department were not comfortable with the technology. They weren't comfortable with the learning management system, and I had to make sure that they were. So I had to do one-on-one development with the group of people until I phased them into, now they're 8 weeks. And so what they used to have was 40–50% success rate. Now they're at 67–70% success rate. And the students aren't, I mean, they're not, you mentioned about the reflective piece. The students are only taking 2 classes at a time every term. So they're not having to, go through all this content all at once and take 5 tests at the same time, which is usually what happens because we schedule our classes that way. So if they're only doing it 2 at a time or 3 at a time, then it's a little bit more manageable and they don't feel like I'm, racing to the end. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much for your presentation and for talking about tutoring. I have an interest in that myself quite a bit. By the way, we have about, 18,000 students come to our tutoring centers, which we're very excited by that. I wanted to ask you, one of the areas where we continue to grow, obviously, is in our online. About 60% of our students take at least one online course in this semester in particularly. I wanted to ask, what is your experience with online tutoring and how is that that worked for you? Have you found anything that's worked out well?
That's a good question. In the past, we've used a tool. It was a tool that we purchased. It was called Smart Thinking. I don't know if you've heard of that. Okay. We got away from that. It just, we really weren't, I just felt like we really weren't getting what we were paying for that thing. So one of the things that we switched about it is that we asked our faculty to help be a part of that tutoring initiative. And so, yes, we have online tutors and they're available, but we also require faculty that are teaching online, or especially those that are fully teaching online, to engage in Blackboard Collaborate sessions. But of course, providing the PD to help faculty understand the difference between reteaching and tutoring. So we're not using a tool right now. We're using our own platform, which is our Blackboard Collaborate. Is it the most effective right now? I don't feel like it is, because people just come to tutoring if they want to. We don't require them to, and I feel like that's something that we're currently working on to change the policy to have people come in if they're, struggling. The other piece to that is that you have adjunct faculty that are teaching the majority of the online classes. I noticed that you all have over 1,100 adjunct faculty, and that's the only way you can in order to offer as many sections as you can. So that would be the other piece, to make sure that they too are involved in ensuring that students understand about tutoring and its importance. I don't feel like I have enough data to even share as far as that piece, because very few students come in to the online platform to get help, unless it's something that they're like, oh, I'm desperate, I got to get this done, in the next 2 days, which is why we're trying to change that. And do you all use a certain?
We had Smart Thinking,
and
we're phasing that out. We're moving over to tutor.com. One of the big pieces is to try to introduce our own staff to doing some of the hours as well, your cost savings, as well as them getting our services, which are sometimes more beneficial than maybe third party. So I like what you had to say about collaborating to see how that worked for you, so thank you.
Sure.
We have multiple campuses throughout the county. Each of them have got their own unique aspects, faculty and students. Communication is so vitally important, and my question to you would be this. What is your approach to communicating? And I want you to be specific, please. What is your approach to communicating first with students as a chief academic officer? What is or would be your approach to communicating with faculty, multiple campuses throughout the county? And what would be your approach to communicating with deans? Perhaps in this case would be those individuals that are directly reporting to you.
Sure. I do think communication is key to make anything happen. There's no way I would have been able to be a part of the team that has moved our campus the way we have without being transparent. Most people don't want to make changes, or they're afraid to do things because they don't know why it's happening. And it's sort of just been like, okay, let's just do it. So my approach to communication is to always make sure that I know my team, so I've got to make sure that I am disseminating information appropriately as necessary, as across the lines, whether that's through email or one-on-one meetings with direct reports or group team meetings. Communication with students, I feel, is also very important. We have an orientation, and as I said, you all have one. I think that it would be important as a VP over academic affairs to be a part of that somehow, to be able to introduce myself to students so they can see that, the school has a structure, and that their faculty are, given expectations that they have to follow so that they have a good student experience. I think also even doing, I know we have activities called Pizza with the President. I think those are cool. I think that the VP could be a part of those types of things where you invite students to come in and ask any questions that they want. And that could be students from different organizations, student organizations that are your leaders like SGA or Phi Theta Kappa. But I think that it should be an open forum for everyone. Other activities that I think are good are perhaps at the end of each term. What we've done is have what's called a midnight breakfast. It's actually instruction in collaboration with student services and the tutoring area. And what we do is set up quick sessions. So we've got, a 10-minute session on factoring so that people can get help on factoring. 10-minute session on rational expressions. I know I'm talking about math. 10-minute session on APA format, MLA, whatever. And students will rotate in and out, and some of the faculty will bring their entire class to the session. We have therapy dogs, we have manicures or the cosmetology department. Lots of different groups get involved, and then we go between the student learning resources area and the cafeteria, because then at 11 o'clock, or maybe it's 10 now, the administration keeps moving it, we serve a free pancake breakfast. So those are just different types of activities I think that would be neat to be able to do to communicate with students and let them know that, yes, there are leaders at this college, but I want you to see that we're a part of your activities and a part of your, I guess, a part of your scene almost. I know we're not cool like the students, but I think that when you do something unexpected like that, students really take it to heart because they don't realize that, we're human. And when you can come down to their level and help them understand that you were a student one time too, then at least they'll feel like somebody's on their side, if that makes sense. I think that because this is such a huge, multi-campus, I think it's important that people come together every so often during the year to have conversations about what's going on at each campus, maybe talk about struggles and successes, and share ideas about what's working or perhaps what's not working, and how maybe one campus can help this campus if they're struggling in one area and so forth. I think that, we're all following the same goal, and the students are following the same goal. They all have different abilities, skills, struggles, but they all come with one goal in mind. I'm gonna go to school because I either wanna go and get a job or I wanna transfer to get a bachelor's degree, or get the bachelor's degree here, which is awesome. But if we can remember that we all have the same goal, then it shouldn't be tough to work together. The part that gets tough at I would say any juncture, are the people. And that's just because we all have a different lens, and that's okay. We see the world through a different lens, and it's okay to have different ideas and different opinions. You must respect each other at the end of the day.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carrasco-Jaquez. Please join me in thanking her for joining us today.